Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the sweaters of my wardrobe. I'm going to be telling you how much I've worn each of them and how they're keeping up. And if you are here for the first time, I have been tracking what I wear every single day since 2020, so that's why I'm able to give these sort of very accurate assessments of how things are keeping up with wear. I started doing that at the same time as I started to get really serious about rebuilding my wardrobe. I started making rules and guidelines for myself to add things to my wardrobe so that I could get myself out of sort of like a fast fashion loop, and that has worked really well. Back before 2020, I was buying a lot of things in polyester. Back then, I wouldn't even bother to look at the label. I mean, I was also younger, so it's not really something I'd gotten into at the time. But buying things primarily from fast fashion and also like sweaters that were cut with polyester, etc. I found that for whatever reason, whenever I'd had something for a little bit of a while, I sort of like lost interest in it. And it's usually because things that are made or sweaters that are made or cut with polyester, the fabric tends to act kind of strange. It will create creases where they're not really supposed to be. It'll pill in weird ways. At the end of the day, I really don't have a single sweater from prior to 2020 in my wardrobe, but the ones that I have now, you know, they just keep up with the wear. So we're gonna talk about each of the ones that I have, how many times I've worn them, how they're doing, and I'm gonna be linking to the ones that are still available as well. I usually don't like to buy things in polyester at all, but I do make exceptions for my wardrobe, and I would also make exceptions for a sweater if I really felt like I wanted to. Like if I truly found something very unique which had like a polyester cut, I might consider it. But it hasn't happened as of yet, and right now everything I have in my wardrobe in terms of sweaters are either 100% wool and cashmere. And outside of being the far superior quality for the most part, there is also the added benefit, which I always talk about, but that wool and cashmere regulates your body temperature. It keeps heat very well without trapping it. Whereas compared to polyester, it will also hold the heat very well, but it's not going to release it again once you start to cool back down. So when you start like overheating, you'll start sweating, and that sweat has nowhere to escape. And it's a really uncomfortable experience, which completely goes away when you're wearing just wool and cashmere. So cashmere as a rule is a lot finer and softer and flimsier than wool. It also holds heat a lot better actually, which, I mean, wool is already doing a pretty good job. And depending on like what you like, it can also feel more luxurious. So for the first 2 years, I was pretty much out of principle only adding cashmere sweaters, but this is also because I was for the first time really starting to care about the quality of the things that I added to my wardrobe. So I didn't really have much to start with. So since last year and this year as well, actually I have not bought a sweater, but I bought 3 last year, so you know I was stocking up. But these 2 years I have only been adding wool sweaters. I've just changed my preference a little bit. Wool in general is a lot more structured than cashmere is, and therefore you can have like a thicker and also heavier version, which is just a completely different look than cashmere is. So that's the point. So first of all, my favorite sweaters. One of them is this one that I'm wearing here. This is a cool toned brown from Arcade. I've worn it 52 times. I only bought it last year, and I am so happy with it. I don't think you can actually tell from like this far away, but it is pilling quite a bit. But I also have not depilled it a single time, which I should really be doing. So it's really taking a lot of wear to even get to this stage. And even then, I don't think it looks bad, which is also why, you know, I haven't even bothered to do it. But I should really be depilling this sweater. But nothing has changed about it. It hasn't changed in structure. It has been washed probably 3-4 times. As a general rule of thumb, you do not have to wash cashmere and wool, which is also a big plus. It is antibacterial, so it will sort of cleanse itself. However, especially with the brighter sweaters, you know, you can sort of get them dirty, and in that case, I just think it's easier to run it on a wool program. So I've probably done that 3 or 4 times with this sweater. Again, I am pretty delicate with it. I let it dry also laying flat instead of hanging it. That has worked out pretty well. Overall, outside of the fact that of course it is going to show a little bit of wear in terms of like the fuzziness of the sweater, it really has not happened that much at all. It's only sort of like the small pillings that collect that you will have to remove. And also the way that it stands up in the neck. You can in theory fold it, which I also like to do, but overall, this sweater is just such great quality, and you will see on the screen, I'll pop up like how many times I've worn it. You'll be able to see on all the stats, also the size that I have it in, and also the cost per wear, which, you know, this sweater I will wear it probably at least double the amount if all goes well. I mean, also beyond that. So all of a sudden, like the cost per wear is really reasonable. And going back to buying, like I remember specifically There's a sweater I used to have from H&M, which wasn't actually even made from, it was made from cotton, but it overall ended up not lasting me all that long, where this is from Arket, so it's still within the H&M group, but it still is just a completely different quality range, and it's definitely worth it. So 52 times, it actually is tying with another sweater for the most worn within my wardrobe, but I'm gonna get to that in just a moment, because next up is my black sweater, which is actually identical to this one. So I have the same sweater in 2 different colors. I actually started with the black one. That one I've worn 31 times. When I went to London for 3 months earlier this year, I didn't bring the black, I only brought the brown. I just had to be kind of, you know, smart with what I was bringing. Ended up leaving the black one at home, which I did miss it at the end. So it's definitely the reason that that one has significantly less wear, but 31 is still pretty good. Especially when it comes to the fact that, you know, most sweaters that I used to buy, which were fast fashion, you couldn't even get that much wear out of it. And the thing with these sweaters is that they just look really good. Like, they look high quality as you keep wearing them more and more. And once you add things like that to your wardrobe, they sort of start taking the space of things you would have otherwise bought. I think that's outside of just like being great quality, being comfortable, looking expensive. It's the longevity that sort of does it for me, so that you can turn off your like magpie or crow brain that is like yelling at you to buy something basic like a black sweater. Like, in my opinion, a black sweater is not something you should have to like buy over and over again. So getting a really good one, I mean, I feel that way about most articles of clothing, but especially with sweaters and stuff like that, you can really get it right the first time. Then I have one which is similar, but not quite the same. It's sort of like a similar shape, although this one is longer and a little bit bigger, and it's gray. It's also from the H&M group. It is from And Other Stories. This time they do not have it in this charcoal, which is kind of sad because it's a really, really nice color, but they have it in another couple of really nice colors. They actually also have the same shape now in a cashmere, which I have been going away from cashmere, but maybe I should get it just to have one. I think as part of like this group, it would be pretty good to keep and drag it along. But that one, even though it's also 100% wool, it's a little bit stiffer and a little bit more structured. It's still really comfortable. It's just not completely as soft. This is a little bit more fluffy, although if you're used to like very fluffy sweaters, especially cashmere, this is still like pretty much on the like stiff side. That one I have worn 23 times. It's just a little bit bigger and more wintry-esque than these, so on many days I tend to go for these instead. And also, just like with the black sweater, I did not bring it to London this year, but I also bought that last year. So these were all bought last year when I sort of started getting into wool as opposed to cashmere. And then the last wool sweater that I have is the Ganni leopard. This is sort of like the exception for usually only getting cashmere. This is also 100% wool. I tend to usually almost exclusively wear it like I wear this. I'll bring it as an extra layer, and then if I really need that layer outside of just using it as like decoration or an accessory, I will put it on a little bit later on. But I initially bought this because I really like the leopard pattern or look, but a lot of them look really cheap, and I think Ganni's is really, really well made. They've brought this exact leopard print back almost year by year, I think. At least they've just had another launch with the same pattern. And also, when you can get something which is really exciting like this in design, rather than just like really basic, just as these, it's interesting to get something which is made of 100% wool, because usually these pieces will have a little bit of polyester with them, which is also why if push came to shove and I found something really interesting that did have a little bit of cut of polyester with it, I would consider getting it. But as a rule of thumb, I would not like to. So all of these sweaters, I mean, these are Ganni, again, Arket and Stories, so it's not like that's a lot of brands, but these brands, just those together, make a lot of items. But a lot of these basic articles also come back year after year, and then they'll have them like in slightly different colors. Some of the colors usually come again year after year. I actually think they may have this color again this year. I'm gonna link everything down below, of course. But they are just so worth it in and of themselves, and I think it's good to know that when you shop from these brands, it's usually not like a hit or a miss. If you pick something in the pure fabrics, they're usually doing quite well. And then on top of that, which will also be true for like the other brands that I'm about to talk through, when you buy something from just slightly more expensive brands, I mean, expensive is probably not the best keyword here, but maybe you can, think yourself to the rest. But once you buy things from these brands, should something go wrong or should you be really unhappy with the performance of the clothing, complaining and returning it under warranty is really easy. Usually there's no one who's gonna argue with you, but you're probably not going to want to do that because the items are behaving pretty probably anyway. Not too long ago, I was already talking about sweaters from Another Stories, and someone made a comment saying that they had bought 2 sweaters from Another Stories and then returned them because they were pilling so bad, and that person did not provide any context to whether or not, like, you know, they just said sweaters, but I assume that they probably bought some of the stuff that is cut with polyester from Other Stories, because they do have a lot of things cut with polyester, which I'm not too happy about, but you do have to be a little bit due diligent at just about looking through the label or the details, of course. But then the cashmere sweaters that I have within my wardrobe is the Uniqlo brown turtleneck. It's just the standard turtleneck cashmere that they have. I worn that 25 times. Then I also have one in gray. That one I have worn 14 times so far. And then I have one from Everlane, which is the same type of like crew neck look in like an oat color, and that I've worn 26 times. And it seems here, especially with Uniqlo, but also with Everlane, I mean, these are the sweaters that I have. I've had more from Uniqlo actually, and one of them was this bright or light baby pink one, and after a while it did not look too great. So it seems with these brands it's a little bit more of a hit or a miss, and also as compared to these like beautifully structured necks, which of course are also not the same, but I do have other turtlenecks in cashmere that I'll get to. These are not as like well made or well structured. Actually, now specifically I'm talking about the one from Uniqlo, the brown one. I really like it. I really like the color. For a cashmere sweater, it's honestly not that soft. It also is a little bit thin. I would definitely buy another Uniqlo cashmere sweater if I felt like it wasn't a color I really wanted and enjoyed. But outside of that, I've come to a place where I've found something that's better, so I'm just going to avoid it if I can, which I can usually, unless again it is an exception where they're making something that I really want. And the same is actually true for the crew neck. Actually, that one was really uncomfortable at first and I didn't wear it for a really long time. Then I washed it to see if that would help, and it did. So sometimes it might be beneficial to actually give some of these sweaters a wash. So that's what I did, and then I've been able to wear it since, and it's now comfortable. Before that, it was really itchy, which I don't have an issue with cashmere or wool otherwise. The Everlane sweater, that's the only one I've had. I've really enjoyed mine, but I've also heard from some of you guys that you haven't been as happy with your Everlane stuff. But again, you know, if that ever turns out to be the case. I mean, I've never had anything from Everlane I wasn't happy with. It's just something that I've seen around. But then Everlane is probably also a brand that you can reason with. Nonetheless, I've worn mine 26 times and I'm really happy with it. Then I have sort of like a bonus brand I want to talk a little bit about when it comes to sweaters and cashmere and also wool sweaters in general. This video is not sponsored. I think it's really important that I mention that. I'm truly mentioning this out of my own opinion, but I have worked with the brand multiple times, and that is Lily Silk. They are this like Chinese brand that you've probably seen lots of influencers doing collaborations with, and I'm one of them, but the quality of their stuff is so good. I've had a lot of cashmere stuff from them throughout the time, and I've had some other really interesting pieces. I've had some silk pieces, but the cashmere pieces, especially this like navy turtleneck, I've had that for 3 years now. It actually says that I've only worn it 11 times, but that's because I pretty quickly stopped wearing it actually out and about, and I've been using it as loungewear for like 3 years now, and I've no clue how many times I've actually worn it because I wear it all the time. It is the softest thing that I own, and it still looks really great. It doesn't really, I mean, it pills a little bit, but not at all like more, like even compared to the other things. So when I work with a brand, they always want to send you, of course, like what they have on stock right now, like they want to give you what they're launching. But if I could just make like a wool and cashmere basic video with them, I would love to do that and then show you the other things as well. So next time I'm getting something like a turtleneck sweater in cashmere, I'm not going to go to Uniqlo or any of the other ones. I'm gonna go to Lily Silk for my basics like that. So I do have a few other cashmere things. I also have some other wool things. These are just the sweaters. Like I have some heat tech in wool and stuff like that, which we just won't really get into in this video. Like for example, for those of you who've been here long enough, I have the hot pink cashmere turtleneck, which I barely ever wear that one, but I still really treasure it. I appreciate it when I do. It's from a local Swiss brand called Collective Mon Amour, but I've had stuff from this brand that I wasn't necessarily super excited about. But the cashmere sweater I have from them is definitely really nice. But actually it was also really expensive, which most Swiss things are, and the price difference doesn't really make it worth it. It's just because it is from Switzerland. And then just really quickly, as I would say, like a little bit of a bonus to this video, I also have had coats and jackets in 100% wool. The ones that I usually return to is the things that the Curated makes. I bought my first the Curated coat 4 years ago. That's the gray one. I've worn it 227 times now. The first years it was racking up a lot of very quickly, and then the next years I added, just like with the sweaters, I started adding more things in good quality. So each time you do that, the thing that you used to treasure that much or still do, it will have more like competition for what you like regards to what you're wearing. Sorry for messing up my words. But I have that one in gray. I used to have it in brown, or the classic one I used to have in brown and in navy as well. I have the boyfriend one in gray, but all of them are made from a wool, primarily wool and then cashmere cut, and they just look so great. Like all of them, even the ones I've sold, but especially, you know, the gray one, because that one I've had for longer. I still have it. I've worn it even more. You just can't tell it's ever been worn. Like there's nothing about it that will suggest that it's been worn. Where I also have a pea coat from And Other Stories, which I really love. I've worn this 90 times so far, and that was bought last year. But that one does pill a little bit. It is also cut with polyester. I mean, I'll be linking to it so you can go check out the exact fabric mix if you want to. But I have been really happy with it. It regulates my body temperature just fine. It is a lot thicker than the Curated coats, so it is also warmer, to be fair. But that one is pilling a little bit because they're both this type of like felted fabric, but a lot of the time like this composition or like this mix of fabric will pill in a certain different way, and it might also make like cuts and creases in the item, which wouldn't be the case when something is made from 100% of the natural fibers. But nonetheless, it still looks really, really great, and I am really, really happy with it. So yeah, that was what I had to chat about today regarding my wool and cashmere things. I'm going to be linking to everything down below, and I'm also linking to a group of other things that I found from like within the same brands that are also high quality, but maybe just a little bit different from the exact ones that I have. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like so that I know, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys!